Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how I made this effect inside of Roblox. Basically this effect was made using the Flipbook's animation. It's just brand new, it was just released a few days ago as a beta feature. So I'm just going to be running through how you can sort of clone or recreate this on your own. This is my first ever video, so just bear with me. Might make a few mistakes here or there, might mess up, so I might need to edit some stuff out. So basically what you have to do first of all is you have to go up to File, head on over to Beta Features, and if you scroll down you should see an option here that says Particle Flipbooks. Just make sure that that's ticked so that that's enabled and click the Save button. So now anytime you create a particle emitter, so just create a particle emitter like normal, pop into it, you should see this now, it should say Flipbook. It'll give you a small error, that's normal, don't worry about that, that's just because we're using the default texture of these sparks. Basically all the flipbooks have to be this size for them to work, so just get into the habit of making flipbooks at 1024 by 1024. And I'll be going into more detail on how you can do that. In the description of this video I'm going to have a link to the image that I'm going to be using today. The image is going to be this. So I created this inside of After Effects, and I'll make a separate video if people are interested in how I did this. So this is what we're going to be working with today. It's just a basic lightning strike. It's nothing too crazy. Someone who's better at this could make this a lot better, but I just quickly made a little line and did some effects to it. You know, I added some modifiers to it to get this sort of lightning look. So it heads up there, added a little bit of a glow. Now this is a really important thing. When I exported this from After Effects, each image has to be set to 256 by 256. Now what does this mean? It simply means that it has to be set to this size for it to work properly. So I had to set it to this size for each square. That way they could fit inside of this texture format. So each one of these blocks here is set to 256 by 256. If I hover over one you can actually see it right there. So it says original size. 256 by 256, and there's 16 of them, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's 3 rows of them. Now you don't actually have to have the animation on every single square if you don't want to. My animation was quite quick, it's just a lightning strike, so it's fairly fast, so you don't actually have to have all 16 frames filled up with animation. But after you set this to 1024 and import all of your images like so, what you then do is you click on texture file and you just save it somewhere. So you would just name it something, hit save, and that will give you a small texture file here, and you just click on publish sheet and that should work fine. So after you do that, I'm going to show you now how you can actually rig this up inside of Roblox. So you won't actually have to create this texture. I'm going to supply you with this, but it's just a sort of overview for anyone who's interested. So what we do here is we click on add image, choose file, and we click on the image that I've uploaded for you. Click create, and this is how it's going to look. So it's going to come in just like a normal everyday sort of particle. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to change my lighting back to normal, so I'm going to put that to 3. I'm going to pop that to 14, so it's middle of the day. There we go, now we can see a little better. So I'm going to hide this part, so if we pop the transparency to 1 and we make sure that we can't collide with it, and we make sure it's anchored so it doesn't move anywhere. Perfect. So in the particle emitter settings, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the light emission up to 1. The reason I'm doing that is because I've exported it with a black background. Now it's up to you, you can actually give it a transparent background like this, and that would allow you to create more darker tones and shades, so you wouldn't have to use this light emission, but I quite like it, it gives it a nice glow. As you'll see, nothing's actually different than uploading a normal texture, but what we do is since we have the correct size, this menu should now be available to us, and because I created this at a 4x4, So you see how it's 4, 4, 4 for 16 frames. We have to use this one. Now there are other options. So there's an 8x8, which basically means you can make many more frames. So you can make up to, I believe it's 64 frames, and you can make it them each 128 by 128. The problem with that is, if I showcase this real quick, the problem there is the image can get a little blurry. So the test image they gave was this explosion. Now you see how it's sort of pixelated in quite low quality. Basically that just means that the texture itself is really small, but it does give a really clean animation from far away like this. It does look pretty good from far away, but up close it looks kind of crappy. So if we head over here, click on particle emitter, what we're going to do is we're going to select the 4x4 one. Now that's made them extremely tiny, and the reason for that is we need to increase the Flipbook frame rate. So normal frame rates roughly go between 24 frames, 30 frames and 60 frames per second. So I'm going to set this to about 30, and you'll start to see it animate. Now it's going to head upwards because we actually have the normal particle defaults on. So I'm just going to quickly change these. So I'm going to set the lifetime to 1 second. That way they're not travelling as high into the air anymore. I'm also going to decrease the rate of spawn to about 1, so you only see the 1 going upwards. And I don't really like that either, so I'm actually going to set the speed to 0. Now what that's going to do is it's going to keep this like this. Now it's going to randomly jump around because it's going based on the size of the part. So if we change the part size, you'll start to see that it has a lot more room. So it'll start jumping all over the place. But if you don't like that behaviour, what you can do is you can create an attachment and pop that in there, so that locks it to that one position, and it's just going to currently animate over and over and over again. Now the great thing with this is, because we created this at a higher scale, so it was 256 by 256, it means we can size this up now. So if I wanted to say put this to 5, it looks a little blurry, but it still is decently run. It can still decently run, and we can move it around. So this is basically the basis of how I created this. Now this effect is actually 2 or 3 separate lightning strikes that I created, all working in one, and it's using this entire box. So if I pull this away, you can see it's using this box, and you can see each one is animating extremely fast. So if I head in here and I take this attachment off, I scale this down to about 1, and I increase the rate, you'll start to see that we start to get, a full volume of them. So if I make this bigger, you can start to see how I sort of created this effect. So if we head back over into the particle emitter, which is this, you'll start to notice that I can start playing around with the rotation. So if I pop this to -180 and this to 180, they start randomly appearing. And if I start messing with the size, like so, you can see it starts getting bigger, or I can make them smaller like that. And to be fair, the smallest changes usually create the biggest effects, so don't go overboard with it. Kind of just play with the settings and see how you feel. So if we start adding some squash to it, you can start to get some really crazy effects happening, like this. And at the end of the day, it's really about what you want. So we can start changing the transparency of it, so we can get it to fade off like so. What we can do is I can actually take this light influence down to 0 and start really increasing this now. So I can put this to 25 and start getting quite glowy lines. I can then start changing the colour. So if we head into the colour, and this is just normal particle changes happening here, and if we start duplicating this, you can start to see we start getting quite a nice effect here. So if I pop this over this model, which I took from the toolbox, you can start to see it looks quite decent. It's not the best thing in the world, but I do hope that this sort of helps people understand. But if anyone is interested on how I actually made the lightning, I can go through a full video on that as well. As a quick rundown, it's simply just a line, it's just a spline that I drew, which you can edit. So if I go in here and start changing these, you can start moving them around. You can start to get different effects, and it's simply just a couple of layers with a few effects on them. So it's just like a shape path with some, like, trims on it, some roughing edges, some displacement to give it the sort of broken apart lightning look, and then I give it a wave warp, and I simply just animate it to be really fast, so you can see the keyframes there, and it just sort of goes like that. But yeah, this has basically been a quick rundown of it. I'm going to give the link to the texture pack and the link to the actual image itself that I created in the description below. Just let me know how you guys think, what you think of this. And as for the Deku one, I just simply changed the colour to green, and for his eyes I created a custom lightning bolt inside of After Effects again for that. So if we head on over, you can actually see it's sort of like a lightning for his eyes. It's just a little bit of editing and changing in After Effects, and I made it green. Nothing more to that. I'm sure once people get better at this, they'll outperform myself massively. But yeah, these are the other lightning bolts I used. These are some of the tests I ran. It's just trial and error, really. You just have to get more used to using the tools outside of this of the program, and you can actually start doing things like this, where you can create like slashes. You start doing some crazy slash effects like these. I'm still experimenting, but we'll see how it goes. But thanks for taking the time. If there's anything you guys need to know, just leave a comment. I'll also leave my Discord in the description also. Thank you now. Take care.